published in Forbes, in on ESPN, and he writes about pop culture, sports, and that's it? I was gonna say sex, but no, okay. Not yet. And anyway, please welcome. We're so glad to have him, and we have some of his books to sell later this evening. They're gorgeous. Please look at them at intermission. So happy to have him here to start off the show. Welcome, Andy Frye.
All right, thanks everyone. So in keeping with tonight's theme, what's love got to do with it, I've got a scene from my book. So my book basically is about, imagine any one of us in here is a record store owner in the present, and we hear some rumors around town about this drink called the Gray Line, which may or may not exist, but if it does exist, what it does is it goes back to decades past, and you can take it to time travel to anywhere back in the past, to about the 1940s or so. So my main character in the book is Darby. She owns a record store, and maybe she's a little bit into a midlife crisis, or she's thinking about things, and here's this rumor about the Gray Line, decides to decamp and go back to the 1990s to sort of sort some stuff out. The book actually came out in June of last year, so I've been doing kind of like my mini book tour, just reading it at bookstores. And I know that reading an excerpt from a book is kind of dodgy because a lot of times, I mean, none of you have read the book, you may not know the context of a lot of things that are going on, but I picked out a scene in keeping with tonight's theme. It's about Darby and her girlfriend Lena, sort of in the prequel spot of the novel, I guess before Darby screwed up the relationship, where Darby is diehard into music, and her girlfriend Lena is a librarian, doesn't really care about pop culture that much. So what Darby's trying to do is relate to Lena like, you know, I care about these bands, and I'm really into music because, and well, let me pull out some literature references and see if we can connect on that. So I'm gonna read a part of a chapter from the book, which I printed out here. And I'm gonna take off my George Santos glasses here for a second so I can read myself. Last year I called these my Anna Delvey glasses, but new year, new scandal. So anyway, so scene from the middle of 98 and the 90s. By the time the summer of 1995 became the fall of 1995, staying in almost every weekend for Darby and Lena had become routine, but it never got old. Cuddling up on their couch, talking and drinking wine was what Lena liked to do most. She was a true homebody, and her inquisitive nature became routine. Lena often probed Darby into deep conversations, or tried to, about both important and mundane things, one of which was about Darby's first love, music. "Why do you like bands so much?" Lena asked her. "Why do you like books so much?" Darby replied. And Lena said, "You can't answer my question with a question. I ask first, you tell first." So Darby got a little flustered and said, "Well, okay, I really like music because, I don't know, I do, I love music." "But why the specific music you listen to?" As Lena said that she kept probing her, like, clearly, you don't just listen to what's on the radio. It seems like the bands that you find take a little bit of work. So why Superchunk and not Phil Collins? And Darby, of course, thought to herself as if Phil Collins wasn't a simple enough reason not to like Phil Collins. Anyhow, so she said to Lena, "Quality is one thing, and then there's authenticity. That's just as important to me." And Darby likened it as much as she could for her librarian girlfriend to picking up on good poetry or good literature, searching for the best in what's underrated. She said, "Just like the way the written word sounds good to you, to me it's guitar riffs, it's bass lines, it's counter melodies, it's innovative drumming patterns. Certain things just sound good to me." So Lena asked her, "But why?" And Darby replied, "Okay, so Stephen King, you said you love his books, right?" "Yes, I do," Lena said, all bright-eyed. "Well, some bands that make music do it the same way. Let's take the Ramones, for example. Their songs are short, hard-hitting, straight to the point. They deliver fury quickly," she explained. "Then, just like a good book chapter, the song's over and you want another one." And Lena, her mind was kind of blown a little bit. So Darby continued. Lena said, though, "Did you make that up?" She hinted that Darby was embellishing and maybe bluffing a little bit to try to win her over. And Darby said, yes, I did make that up just now, but that's how I think about music. But for Darby, it seemed like second nature to link favorite musicians to their literary counterparts, like a historian or social scientist might. Darby explained that she saw artists like Iggy Pop and the Stooges, Nina Simone, and even throwing muses in the same context as important writers and literary giants that Lena said she liked. So Darby continued, okay, so you've got Led Zeppelin, and they're pretty much like the combination of Melville and Edgar Allan Poe to me, but of rock and roll. Kind of dark, not overly emotional. They even have a song called Moby Dick. You've heard that one, right? And Lena said, I don't know, maybe. I think I have. Okay, fair, what else? So Darby continued. Okay, so there's Morrissey and his old band, the Smiths. Morrissey, Darby said, is without a doubt a musical version of Oscar Wilde. And Lena said, yeah, I think I know him. And I was thinking more like J.D. Salinger. And she weighed in and said, go on more. So Darby went on. There's Public Enemy, basically rap's version of Tennyson. Cannons to the left of them, cannons to the right of them. Stormed at by shot and shell. Basically the same thing as Public Enemy's Prophet of Rage. And Lena just looked at her and said, Public Enemy? Okay, Bob Dylan. I'm not a huge fan, but he's pretty much the George Steinbeck, and then Lena said, John Steinbeck, not George Steinbeck. Right, John Steinbeck, but of modern music. And then you've got Patti Smith, passionate, brainy, sorrowful, just like Virginia Woolf. And Radiohead's kind of like a Aldous Huxley in a band with their despondent lyrics about a lost society, or Pink Floyd, kind of like Orwell. And Lena just looked at her and said, okay, yeah, I guess so. And then Darby got on to Nirvana, and she said, Nirvana, they're definitely Kafka-esque. But then you've got Carly Simon. I mean, You're So Vain is pretty much Dorian Gray in a song. And Lena was a little bit floored and just really impressed with Darby's fervor, if nothing else. Wow, Darby, I guess you've really thought about this. She said it with a lovely smile. She wasn't necessarily sold on Darby's logic or her tit-for-tat comparisons, but the enthusiasm and careful thought behind it moved Darby's brainy girlfriend. Seeing that their wine glasses were empty yet again and spinning out of another conversation, Darby got up to open another bottle of red that she'd brought over. Lena had a summary thought. So, I hope you weren't trying to impress me with your music as literature talk, or with more wine and your artistic analogies. I hope you weren't trying to seduce me. And Darby just paused awkwardly and looked at her and said, why is that? And Lena looked up to her with her green eyes and said, because it's totally working. So if you need a good read, if you are looking for like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure meets Portlandia, or if you could picture John Cusack in a book, they're going for $15 tonight. I give a portion of every sale to Katie's Kids, which is a local charity. And just thanks for having me.
With ideas, but I don't write a whole book.